My name is Monica Wilkinson Kelly. I'm the archivist at the Edith B. Ford Memorial Library in Oakland, New York. This interview is being conducted as part of the Cayuga and Seneca Lakes Agriculture and Craft Beverage Memory Project. Today is July 2nd, 2021, and I am interviewing Jason Hazlitt and Justin Boyette of Hector Wine Company. So good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So could you tell me your name and where you're from? Justin?
My name is Justin Boyette, and I am originally from Watkins Glen.
Okay. And Jason?
Yep. My name is Jason Hazlitt. I'm originally from Hector, New York, and seventh generation fruit grower, and grew up on the family farm, moved away for a little while, and then came back here. Met Justin.
Okay. And so your family has been growing grapes and fruit since 1852?
1850s. Yep. We were, wasn't grapes necessarily, it was peaches, pears, plums, mainly peaches for a long time. And it's grown into basically vinifera. The industry has grown that way, and we followed it.
Okay. And so you're from Watkins Glen. Can you tell me your educational background and what your experience was in agriculture?
I had zero agricultural background. I went to Ithaca College for education and politics, and I was working for USA Today, living in Syracuse, and then I was working for another company that developed senior living facilities, and I was downsized from a corporate job, and my family still had a house locally, so I moved back here in 2000 and fumbled into the wine industry. It was a temporary part-time job that turned into a career.
Okay, so you're co-owners, co-founders of Hector Wine Company.
That's correct.
Yeah, I moved back, finished my degree in computer science, so I didn't go to school for viticulture either. And I got a job working for Justin at Atwater. We did the 2008 vintage together, and I learned a lot from him. And I was kind of poking at him to see what he wanted to do. And we started talking, and we built Hector Wine Company here in 2009, the following year.
Okay, so you buy all the grapes from
Yes.
From Jason's family
your
farm.
family across the road on
Yes.
we're on 414 in Hector, New York. Forgot to mention your address here.
Yes.
I had been making wine. 2002 was the first commercial vintage I made when I was working at Bagley's Poplar Ridge Vineyards, and I had also worked helping make wine at the Red Newt, Rasta Ranch, and Atwater. And when I was working at Atwater, I was the assistant winemaker, and Jason came to help for a harvest season. And making wine, you spend a lot of time watching equipment run, so we discussed starting a winery.
Well, this is probably something that you grew up with, certainly the industry.
Yes, I grew up in the vineyards, and I always loved the vineyards. But I knew developing a winery would help not only cash flow, but I kind of would create my own customer, so I could sell grapes to myself. I was never the best winemaker, and I knew I didn't have that natural ability. But after I met Justin, I realized he did. So I was like, oh man, now I got something. So convinced him. Whether it was a good choice for him or not, I don't know. But here we are, a decade later.
And what year did you build the winery?
The winery was built in 2010, and we opened the doors on Halloween 2010.
And can you talk about some of the grapes that you are using to make the wines and the types of wines you're making?
We focused on dry European style vinifera wines. We had, I want to say we were thinking that we would focus predominantly on white wines when we started the business, but due to the fortunate site that his family owns, we are able to really focus on producing superior quality red wines, which can be a challenge in the Finger Lakes, but the great location of the vineyard site allows us to be quite successful selling red wine.
Okay. Well, Jason, you were, I don't know, do you recall the Farm Winery Act? I mean, that's what really changed the industry and your family's business as far as growing grapes.
Jason wasn't born yet.
He wasn't born yet. I know.
I've
Heard about it through the grapevine, sort of.
Yes. Yeah, I've kind of grew up with that already established, so I've been privileged in that aspect, I guess.
And your grandfather went to Cornell,
He did.
and
Graduated Cornell in agricultural degree,
And-
and he taught my father, and my father and him taught myself. So I kind of grew up with that experience just chopped down to me.
right, he was and your great grandfather, I think. Your family goes back to,
Yes.
I think, 1823. I read in Mecklenburg farming
Yep.
first, and then fruit growing here on Seneca Lake. So what can you tell me about what makes this area different for growing grapes? Is there something that you find extremely unique?
Well, it's the site. I'll start there. The lake itself, the fact that it doesn't freeze, I think is the first stone, because 0 degrees in the middle of winter, if the lake's 34, 33 degrees, you get nice airflow off of that lake, and it really warms up the vines, and it allows for them to stay alive. So I think just that factor right there allows for us to produce some great varietals that other regions can't. And then the soils have good drainage, and our site has a great steepness to it, and it can hold that warm air off the lake and allow for good drainage and sunlight and airflow. So I think that's a good start. And from what Justin can do in the cellar, it's up to him. But it starts in the field, and without that lake and without the land surrounding it, we wouldn't be able to go anywhere.
And Justin, how many cases did you produce the first vintage?
Our first vintage, we produced about 600 cases, and now we're approaching 8,000 cases annually. So we have grown significantly with a fair amount of success. It has always been a bit of a challenge. We take a great deal of pride in what we do, and we focus on a lot of hands-on work with the grapes, from starting in the vineyards with hand picking to hand sorting everything, trying to produce the finest quality wine we can. And we have a great vineyard site, and so it's left up to me not to mess up the wine that comes from it.
Right. It's a big advantage because so many people have to, plant the vines and wait 3 to 5 years to have grapes produced that they can be
We were very fortunate that we were able to start right off with high quality grapes without having to wait.
Is there a vintage that you're most proud of? A signature wine?
I think the wines from the 2015 vintage were exceptionally good. And I'm also quite fond of the 17 vintage.
Yeah, I mean, the seasons they're always so different from one another. That's what makes it so challenging. Not always fun. But for a grower, I would say the years that it's dry are always the best years for me. In terms of good vintages for him in the cellar, you never quite know until the end. And it's never, just because it's dry doesn't mean if it's a dry, hot year doesn't mean it's a good vintage. So it all kind of depends. But as a grower, years like 2012, 15, 17, 2020, all dry years. So that makes for a good, clean, ripe fruit for me. So those are all good vintages.
I see you have lots of bottles and medals behind you. So obviously, you're very proud of a number of vintages that they're
Absolutely.
very award-winning.
Well, like he said, we every year we hand sort and hand pick our fruit. So we try to make the best out of every vintage. So we're proud of every one of them.
And how many people are employed here at Hector Wine Company?
We have 4 full-time employees as well as a number of seasonal employees. This year, I think we're hovering around 10. And then harvest always brings on a few more hands. We typically have some type of harvest internship, 2 to 3 of those, the people that come and want to learn about the wine industry and want to work with us throughout the harvest season from early September to through mid-November.
And can you tell me about the relationship between the other wine producers in the area? So many people have said they're very helpful if they lend a hand if you need a barrel or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great strengths of our local wine industry is everybody's quite friendly. Everybody sees the way that we're all in this together, and what's good for one of us is good for all of us. And so we definitely have a close working relationship with a number of neighboring wineries. We share equipment. We help each other out if something breaks down, and there's just it's not one person we can call if we have a problem. We have a whole list of people that we can say, hey, we need a hand, or can we borrow this, and everybody's very open and honest and willing to share and talk, and it's a great working environment.
We often say we're growing and competing as a region, not against our neighbors. So we compete against Oregon and California, not necessarily against our neighbors down the road.
Right. So many people have said that. They really work together, and it's a very unique industry here in this Cayuga and Seneca Lake area. And can you tell me about any new technologies? What have you seen over the years that has really helped the industry?
I think, and I'm maybe speaking in Jason's behalf here, some of the best things that I've seen in the 20 plus years I've been involved in is some of the advancement in materials using for growing grapes has allowed for healthier, cleaner grapes than used to be the case 20, 25 years ago, and a better understanding of how to use technology within the vineyard to help maintain a healthy vineyard and allow us to have better grapes all the time.
I'm guessing all of the 100% of your grapes come from Sawmill Creek. Is that fair?
We have a couple hybrids that come from neighboring vineyards, but other than that, it's probably 96%, I would say. But yeah, the technologies to help open up the canopies and keep weeds down and cultivation, that's primary where technology has advanced.
And do you see climate change as a factor?
Definitely. I mean, it's warmer here in general. I would say our winter, when I was just in my young age, from when I was a kid, we would have temperatures that were hovering around 0, negative 10, 15 degrees, week after week after week, January, February. And now where it's, if you see 0, it's crazy. We're usually around 30, 40 degrees, almost more of a mild, rainier winter than, cold, frosty one. And that has really turned the corner for us as grape growers. Our trunks have a better survival rate because it's warmed up. I've seen, we have had drought years too, more so than I remember, but we've also had these crazy rainstorms that produce heavier rains at once, more so than I remember. So I'm definitely seeing climate change affecting our area.
Yeah, I think to go along with what Jason says is we are definitely seeing more cases of extreme weather events, more large rainfalls. We might get the same amount of rain, but it all comes in 30 minutes instead of 3 days. And with the nature of us growing grapes on a slope, those extreme rainstorms can be a real challenge. And I think we're seeing more and more extreme cold snaps at inopportune times for the vineyards and surrounding fruit industry. Late frosts that we seem to be becoming more of a common occurrence than they used to be.
Everything's a little off balance.
In 2021, I think that someone said they were really hit with a cold snap, after it had been extremely warm.
Yeah,
March and early April were very mild, and then we had a pretty hard cold snap for 2 or 3 days, and that's not great for plants.
And hail is a major.
Knock on wood.
We don't want to talk about it. I think Justin's right. That is a good way to wrap it up. The extreme weather patterns have gotten more and more common, whether it's hot or cold or, storms.
So what do you, Justin, see as one of the greatest challenges in the industry right now?
Finding qualified labor. There's always people that want to, they have a romantic vision of the wine industry, but then the people that have a realistic vision of the wine industry and aren't afraid to get in and get their hands dirty and spend the long hours both in the tasting room or in the wine cellar. We've been very fortunate. We have a great group of people that work for us and have been willing to do that. But every time we need to expand that crew, it's a challenge to find the right person that fits that niche. And then I guess from a wine production side, those extreme weather events can cause challenges in the cellar because it can be a heartbreaking season where you have a wonderful season and one weather event can ruin it for you.
Right. So all of the grapes are pressed and processed here at Hector
That's
Wine
correct.
Company.
Yep.
Okay. So how was COVID? We're just coming out of COVID-19. How did that impact you, Jason?
Well, as a farmer, it didn't. The pandemic did not affect the grapevine's growth, so we had to tend to the grapevines. It was complicated in terms of, still having to tend to the grapevines and protecting people's families. Luckily, we didn't have to share an office because you're outdoors, so that did save us. But you did have to wander through the maze of protecting yourself and your families and still getting the work done. So it was complicated in the fields, but we got it done, and I'm very proud of everyone who stayed on, and we were able to keep them on and keep them healthy.
Great. So your dad is Eric Hazlitt,
Yes.
Sawmill Creek Vineyard across the road. How many acres?
So
grapes?
roughly 75. We're tearing things out and replanting all the time. With 75.
Okay. So there's always an ever-changing public taste in the industry for beer and wine. Do you feel the pressure of trying to make everybody happy?
Yes and no. That there are grapes that become very trendy, and with the lag time of planting and catching up, if you're not ahead of the curve, you're behind it. And so we haven't really ever chased that. We've focused more on classic varieties and focused on Riesling and Cabernet Franc that are standouts in the Finger Lakes. And I personally feel if your base product shows the quality and the attention to detail that when people come, they want to explore what the region's known for. They may know about these up-and-coming varieties or these trendy varieties, but if you provide them with an exceptional example of a classic Finger Lakes variety, that they're going to be just as happy as if you had produced something that is the up-and-coming flavor of the week.
Right, and people always anticipate Riesling. For the longest time, Riesling was the wine of the Finger Lakes.
Yeah,
So.
and it absolutely still is, and we produce 2 or 3 different Rieslings a year and focus on that. So with that in mind, it's kind of an advantage for us because we're known as Riesling capital of the United States here in the Finger Lakes. So if we produce quality Riesling, that's what people are ultimately going to be hoping to find when they come here.
Did you find it challenging for people to go and try a red from the area because of the notoriety of the Riesling?
Yes. I mean, that's always, time and time again, we hear in tasting room, oh, wow, that's really good. I don't expect that from the Finger Lakes.
Right.
Yeah, we hear that's actually pretty good. Like, yeah, we can grow it up here and we can produce it.
Yeah, no, that's something I've heard in the interviews too, trying to overcome that expectation of being Riesling only when you produce so many fine reds here.
We also have to tear down the wall of comparing us to other regions. I think people need to come here and taste Finger Lakes reds, not California reds. They need to break down that wall and open themselves up to it. And once they do that, they can accept what they're tasting.
Well, it can be so different from vineyard to vineyard, the terroir, the quality of the grapes.
Once again, it's very much in the Finger Lakes all about location, and we're fortunate to have a great location. And I think there's probably vineyard sites that aren't planted that people haven't found yet that have potential for the future for growing amazing wines here.
So, what would you tell anybody interested in a career in winemaking or opening a winery? Justin?
I would say, come give it a try. Everybody always wants additional help during harvest, so come give it a try and check it out before you commit to it, and you'll get a pretty good idea, because the fall also tends to be, or actually is, the busiest time in the season in our tasting room and locally. So the whole region is abuzz with activity, and so if you came and were to spend a harvest here, you'd see all sides of it, and it would give you an opportunity to see if it was really right for you or not.
Right. And Jason?
Yeah, the same thing. It's good to see the work that goes into it, because what goes into a bottle of wine is a lot more than people think. It's not just the vineyard. It's the harvest, it's the pressing off, it's the late nights. It's also putting it in the bottle and labeling it and then selling it as well in the tasting room. There's a lot of different parts, a lot of different overhead that goes into it. So it's good to see the work before you sign yourself up. But when you get to drink it with your friends, it's rewarding.
Okay, so yeah, the startup. I didn't ask you what the startup cost is for opening a vineyard. That it's wise to see if you like it before you invest. And
absolutely, we hear all the time people walking through the tasting room talking about how they want to do this when they retire. They think it would be great to do this, and they don't have any real understanding of the time and the labor and the importance of finding staff that can get your story out. Anybody who wants to do it really needs to come and experience all aspects of it before they plunk down the money and jump into it, because there's a lot of challenges.
It's a big investment, and it takes probably a number of years to see a return on that investment, I'm going to guess.
That's what we hear.
And it's also good to have real true players in the wine industry too, so we can compete with the world. And for people that want to just come and spend a couple years in it, doesn't help the region. So it is good to have people with real passion and drive to come in and want to succeed here and do well.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add in conclusion? Either of you? Is there, a great contribution that you feel that you're very proud of in the industry to talk about?
I'm not sure.
No.
I think Justin mentioned this earlier. It's good to we make a really traditional product. It's handpicked, it's sorted. Very little machine work goes into our product. It's in a real bottle with a real cork, and I think the art of that is getting a little lost. And I'm proud that we still do all that. And it is labor intensive and it costs more money, but it is quality driven. And I hope the region still holds true to that. And I guess that is one thing that I stay proud of. And every year you hem and haw about, how can we cut corners? And the end game is we just can't, because this is what we do. And I'd say that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep that.
The pressure you probably feel being a seventh generation in the industry, not a grower, but certainly your family has such a long history in the industry contribution. So,
and I think it's pretty neat when Jason's nephew, who's the 8th generation, he came and helped us bottle, and there's still an interest in the industry. And I think that's an important thing, that for long established families in the area, that they're able to maintain an interest and involvement in the family's agricultural business, because that's a challenge in its own right.
Right. Well, thank you for your time this morning. I know you're very, very busy, and I appreciate you taking the time, Justin and Jason, to talk to me about Hector Wine Company. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Again, this is Monica Wilkinson-Kelly of the Edith Ford Library, working on an oral history project, Cayuga and Seneca Lakes Agriculture and Craft Beverage Memory Project. Today is July 2nd, 2021. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.